despite the overwhelming evidence how positive exercise is, it is just shocking how few of us do enough of it. So if by some measure, it's less than 5% of US citizens do enough physical activity and enough exercise. So that's shocking in terms of in the context of how beneficial it is. And if you then ask people why they don't do exercise, the number one answer is consistently, I don't have enough time.
Welcome back, guys. You're listening to the Ancient Health Podcast. Today, our guest is Ulrich Dempley. He is the Chief Product Officer and co-founder of Carole Bike, which is an AI-powered smart bike that is going to cut your workouts in a fraction of the time with improved outcomes. So no longer are you going to be trudging on the treadmill and doing extensive cardio in the gym. You can actually get an improved cardiovascular workout with just 5 minutes with this type of technology. And we're going to talk about it because if you're already scratching your head thinking, how is this possible? There is science to back it up. And Ulrich is kind of the brains behind all of this. And I'm really excited for him to break it down for you because many of you, if you're listening, you probably run into times where you just feel like there's too much on my plate. I just can't commit to anything else. And I'm telling you, the Carole bike, from my experience, is phenomenal. It is in a class of its own. It's not like another spin bike that's going to be holding your clothes in the corner of your bedroom. So take a listen in. You're going to learn something. You're going to learn a lot about your body and how it can be trained in the most efficient and effective way. So Ulrich, thank you for joining us today. Dr. Motley is with us. Guys, we're going to have a great time.
Yes.
Thank you for having me. It's a great pleasure.
Such a pleasure. Such a pleasure. I always let Courtney always start off because Courtney always has these really good questions. Like right at the beginning, she gets the ball rolling. But we are very glad that you're here. And I love listening to your podcasts and listening to your thoughts and ideas because you're super smart. And I'm set times I have to re-listen to what you say because I always think it's about like a book. You know, you read somebody that's really smart and you're like, I think I got to go over that page 2 or 3 times. But thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, guys, we have so much ground to cover because when I first learned about the Carole bike, I thought, okay, this is another spin bike with some cool technology with classes and things like that. And it's nothing like that. This is next level. When we say, AI, this actually learns your body and the way that your body is going to maximize its exertion effort. And so that's where I want to start actually, because if you're listening and you are familiar with workouts in the gym, you may have heard the word HIIT, high intensity training. Now, what this bike has is what's called, or the technology or the component behind it that makes it different is called HIIT. So Ulrich, can you just break that down for us? Because I think that's a really important component to identify what is HIIT when we talk about this specific bike and technology.
Sure. Very well, happy to do that. So most people will be familiar with HIIT, high intensity interval training. And a typical HIIT program will last 20, 30 minutes and have a number of higher intensity intervals. Could be 4, 5, 6, 8, and the interval length ranges from 40 seconds up to 4 minutes. So there's a great variety. Now, what HIIT is HIIT taken to the next level. It stands for reduced exertion, high intensity interval training. And it was developed by scientists looking for the shortest, most effective and accessible way to exercise. And research has basically demonstrated that HIIT is the fastest way to get fit. So a HIIT session consists of only 2 20-second sprints with a very light warm-up, recovery, and cool down. So the whole workout can be done as little as 5 minutes up to 8 minutes, 40 seconds. And where HIIT offers high intensity training, HIIT offers maximum intensity training. So you do very, very short intervals, very short sprints only, but there you're pushing your body to new limits, to its limits, and that makes you much fitter and much stronger in much shorter time.
And Ulrich, whenever we talk about in a shorter period of time, because we go into that whole realm of how you burn certain types of energy storage, whether it be like in the fats or glucose or glycogen. With that, how does the bike monitor your exertion or monitor your health benefits? What sets it apart? Because I think it's really interesting how it basically monitors your sugars and how you burn fats and such.
Yeah. So ReHIIT, what I should say, we've not invented this. ReHIIT is studied and has been studied by a number of labs, universities over the last 15 to 20 years now. So there's a substantial and growing body of evidence behind that. And so when we first heard about it, we loved it and absolutely fell in love overnight and wanted to do something with it, or wanted to work out that way. But we found it really difficult to do on a regular bike because it's not quite easy to implement this workout correctly. And you need to understand, or in a lab setting, they had special bikes that were very expensive and that were operated by a second person, by a lab technician, by an exercise physiologist that supervised the session. And they got great results. But that's obviously is not very practical for somebody at home. Now, because we're not with the user at the time, so you do ReHIIT on Carole bike at home, we set the workup up for you first based on what you tell us. So you tell us your age, your gender, your activity levels, your weight, your height, all of those things. And then we take a very well-informed estimate as to what the optimal workout settings are for you. And that's for your first ride. But then from ride to ride, we actually monitor your performance. And because we have the by far largest database of ReHIIT rides worldwide with hundreds and hundreds of thousands of rides, we can develop and have developed algorithms to optimize the workout for you so that we find what is the perfect resistance for you and find that point very rapidly. And as you get fitter and stronger, we can titrate and adjust and personalize and optimize the workout to you every single time. So it keeps challenging as you get fitter and stronger and keeps being effective. But also, if it's too hard for you, to make it easier and ease off. So if you had an injury or you were traveling for a while and couldn't work out, the bike will recognize that and make it easier for you so that it's a personalized and optimal workout every time you use it.
Yeah, that's great. Does the bike then adapt or adjust to your effort? So say you're doing one of the sprints, you're in one of those 20-second sprints, a different type of bike, just any other type of spin bike that you're on, you're controlling the cadence, like you're controlling all of, the components. But is the Carole bike using specific technology that's understanding your exertion level and adapting to that threshold that you're at?
So the Carole bike is fully automated. It's controlled by a computer and it guides you through the workout and it controls the resistance. So there's no buttons or anything. The screen and so with visual cues and audio cues tells you what to do, and the computer controlled brake system gets the optimal resistance applied in a fraction of a second at the optimal time. So that's to make it simple. I don't want to say easy, but that's to make it simple to do this type of workout, these ReHIIT workouts. And then from ride to ride, because we then can analyze your performance, the workout will get adjusted and the resistance get adjusted so that it stays challenging for you. Or if it's too challenging, that it also eases off. So that's also the reason why it's quite difficult on a normal bike. So to really reach your maximum intensity levels and maximum power levels, the specific sequence of how you perform these sprints is quite important. You need to first speed up and pedal at a really high speed at low resistance. And then your personalized, optimized resistance has to be applied in a fraction of a second once you've reached kind of the target speed. And that's just almost impossible on a normal bike. So if you had, say, an expert trainer by your side who operated your bike for you, maybe, but even then, I think it would be very difficult. And the research is not done on normal bikes. And in fact, most of the, like several of the leading labs now do their research with Carole bike because it is so much easier, well, simpler, so much simpler to do. And they don't need a second person to supervise the workouts.
Yes, like when you have the fluctuations over, what would you say to somebody who's listening that says, can you actually get a really good workout in that low amount of time? And you are saying the science behind it. Can you give an explanation, like how you say like a small HIIT and, you know, the fluctuations in time frame, like I could actually get some good exercise in this small amount of time and it reads you. Can you explain that procedure?
Sure, I can. So in a HIIT sprint or HIIT ride, the important bit is that you reach your maximum intensity levels and that you basically switch your energy demand from base load, from your normal rest energy demand to absolute peak energy demand in a fraction of a second. So with these 2 20-second sprints, you create a spike in energy demand that is about 100-fold greater compared to rest. So it's massively higher energy demand than you usually have. And where your muscles are usually able to burn fat or sugar that they draw from the bloodstream through your aerobic energy system, that is simply not possible quick enough because that energy system doesn't switch on fast enough. So what instead happens is you have to use locally stored forms of energy that are in your muscles already. And that is the first is the phosphocreatine system that lasts for about 10 seconds, that switches on immediately, but it lasts only for about 10 seconds. And the 2 sprints are 20 seconds each. And then the next fastest energy system is metabolizing anaerobically glycogen. And glycogen is a storage form of sugar. And in a way, that is your emergency energy reserve. So you store quite a lot of glycogen in your muscles, also in your liver. And you can mobilize that also very rapidly. And with those sprints, you mobilize lots of it. In a way, you simulate a emergency situation, a fight or flight situation. Imagine you have to run for your life or fight for your life because the energy demand increases so rapidly in such a short period of time. And now what your body does, it mobilizes lots of that glycogen. And it mobilizes, so it's been shown, 25 to 30% of the glycogen stored in your thighs. And that's a huge amount of energy, much more than you actually need for 2 20-second sprints. But the thing is, once you switch on the energy demand so rapidly, you get the mobilization, and then it doesn't actually matter how much you use of it. So you actually use just a tiny portion of that mobilized glycogen. But what triggers the adaptation in HIIT is basically that the glycogen was mobilized off its stores. The glycogen stores get depleted. That's the terminology. And bound to that glycogen are certain signaling molecules. So primarily AMPK. And then downstream, that also activates PGC1 alpha, another signaling molecule, which is the master regulator for mitochondrial biogenesis. So through this chain of events, you can trigger a molecule that delivers a strong signal to your body to basically get better, to develop more mitochondria, and therefore get better at utilizing oxygen. And that's one of the mechanisms how you're thought to how you're improving your fitness. There's another one, which is through the rapid mobilization of the glycogen and the partial metabolization, you create an osmotic imbalance between muscles and blood streams. And there is a transient drop in plasma volumes because a lot of water shoots into your legs. So your plasma volume drops by 15 to 20% for a short period of time. And that is thought to lead to an increase in plasma volume. And both of those things mean then you get basically better at delivering oxygen, and you're getting better at utilizing oxygen. And that means your fitness levels go up, your VO2 max, your ability to metabolize oxygen during exercise goes up. And yeah, what's really the fascinating thing about ReHIIT is that these 2 20-second sprints appear to saturate this signaling response mechanism, so that it's almost like flipping a switch where, once you've flipped the switch, you've got the effect, and pressing it harder or longer just doesn't have any further benefit. There's some data that suggests it's even the opposite, that if you did more sprints or longer sprints, you get less benefits. Now, this is an emerging field of research. The people are working to understand really why that is. And there's, several theories. One of them is that because usually with exercise, more is better. That's just usually you can either work out longer or at higher intensity. As long as you're not overtraining, more should deliver greater benefits. So this is quite a paradox and something that makes ReHIIT very unique. And what is thought to happen is first that this signaling response mechanism gets saturated. And then the other thing is that the psychology of us works against us there. So if you have to do 5 sprints and they're like a minute long, you pace yourself. You don't push to maximum intensity levels. If you know you only have to do 2 20-second sprints, it's so short, it is actually possible to go to your limits. If you had to do the same for 30 seconds, 40 seconds, if you had to do the same for 3, 4, 5 sprints, that would be very painful. And people would pace themselves. They would just not go all out, hold back, and therefore basically blunt this signaling mechanism. And that's what seems to happen, but it is an emerging field of research. But the data suggests exactly that 2 20-second sprints are enough, and actually that more is not better.
Oh,
great.
wow. I know this is really,
so interesting, Ulrich. It's rolling my head like about how fats burn. Keep going, Courtney. I have some other thoughts too about metabolic rate stuff. Yeah.
So for these sprints, okay, so the signature workout is the 2 by 20-second sprint. So you're basically doing a short warm up, and then you're doing your first sprint, and then you do a rest period, and then your second sprint, and then a cool down. Is this, what's the data supporting? Because, like you just said, more is not always necessarily better. But in my mind, I'm thinking, well, what if I did it like 3 times a day, just at different times of the day? So what's the sweet spot for somebody that is always looking? Because we have a lot of like high performers, a lot of people that are always looking to up the ante, especially when it comes to their fitness. And I know all you crazy people out there that are type A's that are like, well, I like to work. I like to sweat for 60 minutes. And I feel like 5 minutes, I'll do it 6 times. Is there any damage or drawback to doing it those small cycles, but doing those more frequently? Or do you just need one?
So our recommendation, and also what the research suggests, is for cardiorespiratory fitness, so VO2 max, that 3 times a week is sufficient. And one thing I think that's really fundamental to understand is and this is true for every exercise really, you don't get fitter during the exercise or while you're exercising. You get fitter in the recovery periods between the exercise. So it's very wise to give your body also enough time to recover and adapt and to grow and get stronger and fitter. So the recommendation is to do it 3 times a week for cardiorespiratory fitness. And there's great studies and great evidence as to how much improvement in VO2 max you can get in a really quite short period of time. And in fact, some studies suggest even 2 times a week may be enough for the fitness aspect. For metabolic health, so prevention of metabolic diseases, type 2 diabetes, and so on, a little bit more often, like 3 to 4 times is better. But no suggestion that you should be doing it every day. Now, when I talk with our academic partners, nobody has yet said, because the exertion, the overall level of exertion is so small, there should be no downside to do it every day if you want it. And in fact, Monday to Friday, many times I do it every day just because I'm a creature of habit, and it seems to be, for me, it's just easier if I don't have to think about it. But there's no need to do it every day. So 3 times a week, perfectly fine. Several times per day, I've not come across anybody who does that, and it wouldn't be our recommendation. Again, because the level of exertion is so low, I don't think there would be any harm done, but it certainly is not our recommendation. And I think my suggestion would rather be to mix it up. So there's great other things you can do, like some mobility work. I think everybody should lift some heavy weights. So rather mix it up. And if you want to spend a lot more time, then what's gained a lot of popularity, let's put it that way, is a mix of training in different training zones. So yes, have that component with really high intensity, but then if you do have the time, and there are plenty of people who have time for exercise, others who don't, but if you have the time, to also add in longer stretches of low intensity exercise, just because it provides a different stimulus, like zone 2 training, which you can wonderfully do on the bike as well. So it isn't just a HIIT bike, it is actually a very versatile bike. And rather mix it up a little bit rather than do the same thing over and over again.
I like the way that when you say talk about fluctuations, the reason that Courtney and I started to grin, Ulrich, is because Courtney will try to do those small intervals 4 or 5 times a day, because that's her personality. That's why she's like, what if somebody, so she's just trying to size you up and saying, it's okay for me to go do this. That's what she's doing. So you know,
and so there is also some logic in that. So I have, I've got a bike at home. I've got a bike in the office. But it doesn't always have to be 2 20-second sprints. So 20-second sprints, if somebody's never tried it, it might, we basically have to convince people on the one hand that, yes, it can be effective. And that's because it's also quite hard if you go all out. On the other hand, 20 seconds is fairly short. But the bike also has rides with even shorter sprints. So you can do, for example, 2 15-second sprints or 2 10-second sprints. And the difference between, and people might not believe it until they've tried it, but the difference between a 15-second sprint and a 20-second sprint is really quite a lot. And a 30-second sprint would be a lot harder still, because that's like and a 10-second sprint is actually quite easy. So if you wanted to use these short workouts as like an energizer, like early afternoon to get your energy levels back up, then you certainly can. And we have our bikes, so we have plenty of users who have the bike in a workplace setting, or then you can use these shorter sprints that are a lot less taxing and still basically, just rev up your energy levels without putting significant stress on you. So I would rather, if you want to do it more often, I would do then, let's say, the 2 20 seconds in the morning And in the afternoon, like a 2 10-second or 2 15-second ride, that's slightly less stressful.
Okay, that's what I've
That's
done
what I was
that before. And I was like, I like kind of mixing it up because there are different like programs. So you're not just bound to one. So maybe we could even talk about that too, what the other capabilities of the bike are, because there's a lot more than just like a couple of these sprints, and there are other platforms that it can integrate with, and it tracks your threshold of exertion. So you can actually track your progress as you start to do these to see that your body's actually getting more efficient. It's getting stronger, which I always love to see the data. Like I can, you kind of feel like maybe I'm a little stronger, but I'm like, I actually want to see that it is showing up some way. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. No, you absolutely will. So there's two sides to this, kind of about the results and the effectiveness. So with every HIIT ride, you get a fitness score. You get a whole range of metrics that you can track and where you can see your progress. And our users achieve on average in their first 8 weeks, a 12% improvement in their fitness. And that's also been demonstrated in peer-reviewed randomized controlled trials. So we have the metrics to back it up, but it's also something you just feel. So if you, especially if you, like, it depends obviously a little bit about your prior fitness level. Yeah. So if you're kind of a highly trained marathon runner and so on, then this will add a new stimulus. But the relative improvement, like if you're already at your like biological set point or so, will be different for somebody who maybe doesn't work out that much yet. And especially for the people who don't have a workout routine yet that they can stick to, it's very noticeable. It's like VO2 max is such a fundamental measure and metric of your health. If you improve that by 12, 15%, up to 20%, if you kind of after like 12 to 16 weeks, that's very noticeable. It's not subtle at all. You will definitely feel it. So you see the metrics on the screen, but just by walking up the stairs, you will notice the difference. So that was one thing. And then the other thing about what you can do with the Carole bike. So we have built a bike that is absolutely optimized for HIIT and basically does everything as good as we could think of it for making these HIIT rides as simple and as easy to perform. But it's not just a one-trick pony, because you can do, so first, a number of other scientifically validated kind of sprint interval training workouts. We have a series called the Fat Burn series. Those are shorter sprints, but a lot more of them. And that's a sprint that's you sweat buckets afterwards and you burn a ton of calories. We have zone-based training. We have free rides. We have a range of fitness tests like FTP tests. Cyclists are very keen on that. And the bike is compatible with a really large range of third-party apps. So you can use Peloton Digital if you want on the bike. And you can use apps like Swift or KinoMap. They're a little bit more specialized in a way, but there's a whole cycling subculture, like all the middle-aged men in Lycra with a carbon road bike. I don't want to make fun of them because I'm kind of fall into the same category. So I'm okay to joke about it. But they're really passionate about apps like Swift, where you can cycle with many, many thousands of other riders in virtual worlds. And that's a platform where there's just an industry standard how the bike and the app communicate. And our latest generation bike is compatible with that. And so you can use these apps as well. So it's a very specialized, but at the same time, also a very versatile bike. And especially in like households where you have more than one user, that's quite helpful. And we thought of it as a necessity because most people have one bike at home. Most people don't have 2 or 3 different kind of specialized bikes at home. So we wanted to give users quite a lot of choice in what they do.
And with that, when you have just one bike, I love the options on the bike where you can hook up to different apps. What would you say to those individuals who have different apps? And like, let's say one family member is going a certain type of diet plan, like a keto, or somebody's doing a fasting metabolic, they fast in the morning and such. Are there suggestions that they put on the bike or give to you? Like, okay, you're in this arena of your diet. This is what we suggest for you. Could that be hooked up to the bike?
So we don't have that yet. It might come. I don't want to promise it. So that's not something we have. And I know there's great interest whether to do cardio fasted or not. And our users do actually ask us for that. There's no definitive science on that. What's better? So this is really more you do you. I tend to I actually always do it first thing in the morning. So I'm at least fasted to a certain extent, not crazy long fasting window, but I prefer to do it first thing in the morning. And I know that many other users also reported that they enjoy to do it in a fasted state, or because it is so short that they can even do it while they do longer fasts. So I think it's entirely possible, but there's no, as far as I'm aware, there's no definitive science on that. Also, time of day is really is personal preference rather than that you have to do it that way. I for myself discovered it's just easiest when I get out of bed. Literally, I get out of bed, I get on the bike, and then I can get on with my life. So I've basically spent 6-7 minutes on the bike and have my cardio workout done for the day. So it's very simple and just it's a habit I don't have to think about, and that's most important. In any case, most important, like more important than anything else, is just to do it. So because exercise, I think this is not disputed anymore. It's very clear that exercise is one of the, if not the most important lifestyle intervention you could do for longevity, for well-being. And you can get so others that I would rank, like sleep, obviously, nutrition is important, but like exercise is up there. I think it would be in everybody's top 3. But you can, in a very short space of time, get really great improvements. So in 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, you can get remarkable improvements. The sad thing is if you stop exercising, you also lose those benefits about as fast as you've gained them. So it is something that you have to continue doing. And therefore you have to find a habit that works for you, that's sustainable for you. And you have to, if celebrity instructors and fancy music is kind of just something that excites you for a very short time, but you don't really have time for 2-3 hours of long cardio sessions per week, then that's not good. If you have time for 5 minutes 3 times a week in the morning, and that's something you can stick to, then that is actually something that benefits you in the long term, because you have to make it a habit.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point, because I think the mental gymnastics we go through in our minds, thinking all the time, okay, well, I got to go here and drop the kids off, and then I could maybe, swing by the grocery store, but I probably won't have time to like hit the gym because I don't have 30, 40, 50 minutes. And so it day after day keeps going by. And then 4 or 5 days in, you start like getting in a funk. Like, at least I do. I mentally am not in a good place. No one wants to be around me if I have not had an outlet of exercise, even just for a few minutes. So I like this technology because it allows me to stay in a routine. I know come hell or high water, if I cannot get myself to a gym or outside doing something, if I can put forth this kind of effort, you actually, there's probably a lot of data. I mean, you're a data guy, Ulrich. So what other benefits could people experience just in these short 5 minutes? I imagine cognitive, sleep, all of these things are influenced, even if you only get those few minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's the benefits are fairly far reaching, almost incredible. So you number 1 and 2 is clearly cardiorespiratory fitness, VO2 max. So you can expect about a 12% improvement in your first 8 weeks. And then it continues further. Obviously, there will be your biological set point reached at some point, but we try to make this happen only as late as possible. So you kind of gain as long as possible. The second thing is metabolic health. That's prevention of diseases like diabetes. Studies have shown that over 8 weeks, you can reduce your risk for developing metabolic diseases by 62%. So that's very remarkable. That's equivalent to taking a drug like metformin. And then there's a range of other benefits. So obviously there's, even though the sprints are really short, there's a meaningful amount of calorie burn because it's a very substantial afterburn. It's called EPOC, excess post exercise oxygen consumption, where your body burns for another 90 minutes, 2 hours after you've come off the bike, more calories. And that helps, obviously. Your leg strength increases, your brain health gets a positive benefit through the release of BDNF, brain-derived neurotropic factor. It's effective against anxiety and depression. It helps offset the negatives of lack of sleep. It's good for your hormone production. So there's a range of benefits. And as I said, the key thing is doing it. And so we try everything possible to make it as easy as possible to create a sustainable habit. And so if you survey people, and that's been repeated over and over again, the number, sorry, I'm jumping now a bit. It's despite the overwhelming evidence how positive exercise is, it is just shocking how few of us do enough of it. So if by some measure, it's less than 5% of US citizens do enough physical activity and enough exercise. So that's shocking in terms of in the context of how beneficial it is. And if you then ask people why they don't do exercise, the number one answer is consistently, I don't have enough time. And there are people who say like, oh, that's a little bit of a fluke. People would have time if they enjoyed it, or if they prioritized it, if they cared enough, if they weren't lazy. But the thing is, the competition for time is so tough these days, because there's so many other things we could do to entertain us with, and that are so tempting, like scrolling endlessly through short videos, box sets, you name it. That time is really very, very precious in a way, and you have to compete. Exercise has to compete very, very hard for its share of time. So we felt that having time efficient exercise is actually something really beneficial. And that's, yes, I have 3 children at home. I know how difficult it is to find time to exercise. And this helps me to fit it in. And I also know, like, many of our users actually also enjoy longer workouts. So it's not that they hate exercise and are kind of, they just want it over and done with as quickly as possible. But maybe they enjoy other types of exercise more. Maybe they enjoy lifting more or yoga more and want to get the cardio component done as quickly as possible. Or they also need a backstop because, there are busier times of the year where like sometimes you can go for an hour-long run or for a long cycle ride or so. Other times you don't. And then it's really useful to have a backstop so you don't kind of derail and you don't get out of a mindset that, yes, you have to do something and for your fitness and your physical well-being.
And when you have that, it's that option to be more consistent and do the re-HIIT. Yes, if people would really research it, actually is more efficient for them. Like, if you can stay consistent, because I don't know exactly all the science, but let's say somebody wanted to do a re-HIIT type exercise, but I don't think they probably realize what other kind of exercise they would have to do to try to get the benefit that the Carole bike gives. I mean, are there other examples like when people say, well, if they're considering getting the bike, why would, if I'm going to get this bike, why would I need this bike to do a re-HIIT? Are there other versions of re-HIIT that you could compare it to show you that the bike is so efficient for you and you can be consistent and get the health benefits?
Yeah, sure. So there may be, I can talk through like some of my thoughts of what else could you do to harness the benefits of this type of workout. I've talked a little bit already using a normal exercise bike. You could try, but it's just fairly difficult. And we found it couldn't be replicated. And when we called up the scientists who did the research, literally the first thing they told us was like, well, you need a special bike. It was like, dough. So if you want, and we've built a bike to make it as optimal and simple as possible. So a normal bike is not a great alternative, but you could try it. I would probably not recommend doing like other types of fitness equipment, like a treadmill, rower, stepper, elliptical, because of the injury risk. Like a bike is a very low impact and very, very safe type of exercise equipment. And it's very safe to go really wild on it and go all out on the bike, whereas like on a treadmill, I think it would be terribly dangerous to go all out top speed because the trip risk would be just so much higher. Also on a rower, I think the exercise, the movement is just a lot more jerky to get to those levels of intensity. And on a bike, you can do it very safely. If you like body weight exercises, I just don't think you get enough load. So I don't think body weight exercises are would get close to the levels of intensity you get on a Carole bike. There are air bikes. You may have in your gym, like CrossFit gyms have these air bikes. They're not a bad alternative. One problem with them, first, they're noisy and don't have any like apps or metrics on them. But it's essentially an air bike is a bike with a single gear. So there's a single relationship between pedal speed and power. And so this may be great for a, 35-year-old CrossFit athlete or so. But it's certainly not optimal for users like my mother, who's 80 by now, and who uses our bike 3 times a week. And it really helps her to maintain her cardiorespiratory fitness. And we can do that because we have not one gear, but 255, and we personalize it exactly to make it optimal for you, for her. And so it's a different experience. And then the final thing, so if people want to try it, like the easiest and cheapest way would just be to go on a running track. Jogging very slowly, and then for 2 20-second sprint, go really all out and run for 20 seconds as hard and as fast as you can. I think that gives actually quite an appropriate level of load. The problem is with that, like I think trip risk, and you don't see in my local park, I don't see anybody do that because people do feel slightly self-conscious and embarrassed about it. So many of our users, so a typical Carole user is somewhere between 35 and 65. We have younger ones, we have older ones up to 80. And we have people like the young ones from 10, 11 years old or so. But the typical Carole user is 35 to 65, many between 40 and 60. I think that's when people get more health conscious. And and still kind of leading very busy lives and want to do kind of an effective workout. And that's like what we offer. And so going all out in a park and sprinting at the top of your ability is just, not something that many people want to do. Of course you can, if you're careful, and certainly do try it. But I think most people would prefer to do such a type of workout in a more protected environment.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I will 100% tell you, if I can avoid sprints at all costs, I will. And I do them on occasion, but I mean, they crush me. So it's not something I'm doing.
Exactly.
Not
And then
times
also joints, for example. So if people have already like some level of maybe they're not as skinny and slim as they once were, and they have joint issues, for example, like sprinting is really hard then on the joints, whereas cycling is very easy on the joints and is a very, very low impact modality.
Yeah. I want to ask this. So we were actually talking a little bit pre-show, and we were talking about how you do like some mobility stuff, and we were just talking about our own personal regimens, because I love this technology because it kind of has that minimum effective dose thinking behind it. Like we don't want to, because here's what I see. So many people working really hard in a lot of different areas of their life, creating a massive amount of stress. So, and there's very little margin for recovery. And so then we start throwing on these really heavy workouts, and we're putting energy towards so many different things that we're just not recovering well enough. And so we're basically in these catabolic states where we're just deplete.
Yeah.
And then people feel terrible because they're inflamed. So they're not getting the benefit really because their stress burden is so heavy. What do you think, based on your knowledge, the right recipe or combination is? Because I think that you've really found something significant here when we talk about cardiovascular health, longevity, really creating this like growth sequence, like we talked about a little bit earlier, that kind of happens as chain reaction. But are there other components outside of like nutrition, when we're just talking about fitness? Do you feel like there's a secret sauce of Carole bike type workouts with this HIIT component, and then strength training or mobility, things like that, that you feel like that's really going to give you like the best outcome for your physical health?
So I don't want to, I'm not sure I found the magic bullet, but what works really well for me is to do the Carole bike, and I really focus on the HIIT 3 to 4 times a week. I try to get every morning also a short mobility routine in, and that has to be less than, or that doesn't need to be more than 10 minutes, but just like a short stretching routine, essentially. I'm 46 now, and I've realized that you basically have to look after yourself. In my 20s, obviously I did some sport, but it was purely for fun, like to be competitive, not for any health concerns. Like I couldn't have, I wouldn't have thought of anything like that. But yes, no, I do think some mobility work is essential. And then obviously, I think everybody should lift, because it's fun to me, and I think many people, if they tried it, would hopefully feel the same thing. And protecting your muscle mass and your strength is so important as you age. And yeah, I'm looking in the mirror, I'm looking in the camera here. It is just something so that also needs to be done. And you need these separate stimuli. You can't only do strength training. That certainly wouldn't provide a sufficient cardiovascular stimulus. You can't, in my eyes, only do cardio. That would not be enough. And you need something to stay mobile and flexible, in essence. So I think those are the 3 pillars that everybody should cover, really. ideally at every age, but I guess most people become a little bit more health conscious as they grow older.
With that having different aspects, different type of workouts, you're approaching your body to try to hit every single aspect of it, like respiration and your metabolic. What about the individual? We know it builds muscle. We know that when you bike, most people are looking at biking to like help them lose some weight or help them regain some footing in their metabolic rate. But what about muscle building? Are there programs on there to help like with muscle building? Is that possible with HIIT training?
So yes, for your leg strength. And in fact, so I've seen the results. There is a new study about to be published. I think it goes through the peer review process now. And we see it in our data because we measure peak power, obviously, with each ride, that basically the forces during re-HIIT are relevant, are so high that they're also relevant for strength development. So in a 8-week period, you can also expect to improve your leg strength by about, I think it was 14-15%, wow, which is meaningful. Now that doesn't cover your whole body yet. So for example, like upper body, you'd want to do something else on top. But if you think what people dread most when they go to the gym, when they go lifting, is leg day. Yeah. So squats and deadlifts and so on. Even though I find those, I actually like those too, but you can go lighter on leg day then and focus on upper body strength when you do lift, because that is actually covered by to an extent by the re-HIIT workouts on the bike.
Yeah, so good. This has been, I really, I love, like I said in the beginning, I love exercise, and I'm always looking for the most efficient, effective ways to challenge my body, because I also know that I have to show up in a lot of other capacities and also be able to have enough like mental energy to, do my day-to-day stuff. And so a lot of times, like, I think we only feel good about our workouts when we're crawling out of the gym and feel like we've just beaten our body to a pulp. And that's not necessarily, even though in a moment we may feel somewhat accomplished, because I've been there, and I'm like, oh man, I really crushed that workout. But I mean, I'm starving later on during the day. Like, I feel like my body's literally telling me like, stop doing this, because you're constantly hungry. You feel like you're hitting a wall by 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon. You feel like your blood sugar's kind of everywhere. And then you just want to take a nap. So that's not a sustainable model. And I love this because it's backed by science. Like, you can't argue with the data. And so I love that is really where this has been birthed out of, is really seeing an opportunity to understand how our bodies will respond the most effectively. And this technology is wild. I've never seen technology. I mean, like you said, like the only stuff that I have seen is like, it's like $20,000+ to have something like this. So now that you've made it available to the everyday person and consumer, it's pretty cool. So we're excited to be partnering with Carole Bike, guys. If you're listening and you're like, I want to check this out, you've got to look at their resources online. The website has tons of articles. And like I said, if you like to nerd out on data, there's more numbers than you could imagine, because they'll give you specific percentages of everything. And it's really, really cool. So if you like that stuff, you're going to love the website that they have and the content and the articles and everything that they have for you to consume, because they're incredibly thorough. So I so appreciate us having this conversation. And if you are listening, we have a really great promotion for you to get $100 off your own Carole Bike. It's Health Institute is the code that you'll put in at the end, but make sure you do that to check it out. And if you have questions, let us know, because Dr. Motley and I have been able to play around with the Carole Bike. We've been able to actually experience it. And it is everything and more of what you're thinking. And I've also used like Peloton and other things like that. When I tell you, it's like, it's kind of in its own arena. I don't really feel like you can't really compare it to other spin bikes. So it's really fascinating technology, but I think it's really gonna take it to the next level for people when they're looking to optimize their outcomes.
Yes.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much. I should add one little thing, because we're obviously we're trying hard to get our message out, and we're coming with some pretty bold claims that 2 20-second sprints would be so effective. But in some ways, experiencing and kind of basically trying it and seeing is believing. And so we do offer, I think, an industry-leading like 100-day risk-free trial. So when you purchase a bike, you have 100 days to see whether it is for you. And 100 days is really enough time to see whether it's effective for you. So do you get fitter? Do you feel better? And it's enough time to see whether you can build a habit with it. If you, for whatever reason, think it's not for you, you just call us and we pick the bike up and you get a full refund. So that's something to make it a little bit easier because we appreciate there's we say some things that are maybe contrary to some long-standing, long-held beliefs, and that people would like to really be convinced of. And the best way to experiencing is just by trying it. So we do offer a very industry-leading, very generous 100-day risk-free trial. If you purchase the bike, you don't like it for whatever reason, we just pick it up.
I want to say quick things. I think it's great because, like Courtney was talking about all the data, and I know I want to get your information and tell everybody how to get this bike, but I want everybody out there to know with the data that's involved. I loved it that, you're talking about blood sugar, and I'm saying, like, with metabolism, one of the biggest benefits I see with the bike is that you can monitor the improvement in like your blood sugar levels, in the sense that we're living a fight or flight world. Like, we're always in that mode. And I think it's a beautiful thing to say, like, if anything, you're going to see that the metabolic flexibility you get with this bike is going to help you with how to regulate blood sugar. Second thing, though, Ulrich, I want to know where did the name Carole come from? The Carole bike. I need to know that. Yeah, I'm just wondering. I got to figure this one out.
That's us geeking out a little bit. So it stands for cardiovascular optimization logic. So CAR, cardiovascular optimization logic. Okay. And our idea was that Carole would be your AI health coach, your AI personal trainer, and that she's coaching you and she's optimizing your workouts. And that's where the name comes from. And in fact, I mean, technology is growing really fast, and we're working on building that out and really have her as your AI health coach. We've got the first bits implemented, of course, to get the workouts optimized, but also, so I hope that at some point soon, again, I don't want to say dates yet, but that she'll be able to answer questions and really giving advice and helping you achieve your optimal fitness levels.
That's good.
Carole's going to be here to help us all out. So, my middle name is Carole. We call it the
Wonderful.
Courtney Carole 3.0.
Your middle name's Carole? I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's my grandmother's name. So,
Wow, okay.
Yeah. It's I feel on brand right now, the Carole bike.
Wonderful.
It's like, so anyway, that was totally random, but I love that explanation. That's really cool, because I was curious about that.
Yeah, exactly. So you know how like in Space Odyssey 2001, you had HAL, this heuristic algorithm, and many of, like, in the Hollywood movies of old, the AI characters, or Vicky had another one with these acronyms, and so we had Carole, and that gave the name.
Acronyms are the best, though. I mean, one of my mentors, he's the best with acronyms. I mean, he comes up and they stick in your mind. You remember them. So I know time is of the essence, and we're always sensitive about your time, Ulrich, but what's your favorite music to like do your workouts with? Like, we're trying to like get like some levity at the end of our podcast. Like, what is your favorite kind of music that you'd say that you like to work out to?
So we've got this Tiger soundtrack on the bike where Carole guides you through the workout and sets you into a prehistoric landscape. And then when you have to sprint, a tiger attacks you. And I still love that. It gives you like a little extra kick. helps me relax in the recovery, in the cool down, and gets me going in the sprint. So that's another kind of like quirky and interesting thing that I think many of our users enjoy.
Oh man,
So
this
fun.
has been great.
I
This has
do
been
love
great.
that. Yeah. Well, Ulrich, tell us, I know we kind of like, ran down really fast, but somebody wants to get their hands on a Carole bike, or they just want to learn a little bit more about, just taking things in depth of where we've already been. Where do they go to find out this information?
Yeah, sure. So you can follow us on all the social platforms at the Carole Bike. You can go to our website. We've got a ton of information there at carolebike.com. We do offer fitness advice. We have fitness advisors with an MSc in sports science, exercise physiology. So you can schedule a call with them to really talk about your objectives and how it might fit into, your workout program and into your life. And then, yes, you can purchase the bike through our website and then have a 100-day risk-free trial, which is enough time to make up your mind whether it is right for you. So it's really quite simple. The key resource is our website. You'll find all the details on there. You can talk to our fitness advisors and see whether it is for you.
So cool. I think that's phenomenal that you offer that, because I don't really know of anybody that offers that kind of, especially on, something like a bike, that it's a bigger investment and obviously a lot of effort on your side, in, making sure that you uphold that end of the agreement. So I feel like that says a lot about your business, but also the confidence that you have that it's going to get people results that that they can experience.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So cool. Well, guys, thank you for joining us on today's episode. If you liked it, make sure that you subscribe, you share, do all the things, as Dr. Motley says, push all the buttons and, do all the things with it. So make sure you check out our show notes. We're going to link everything for you here if you need to come back and reference any of it. And the code for $100 off your Carole bike is Health Institute at checkout. Ulrich, thank you so much for partnering with us. We absolutely love your mission. We love your products, the research that you're doing. You're really creating kind of a new, you're blazing a new trail a little bit. And I love what you're doing in this space. So guys, it's been so fun to hang with you today. We will see you on the next episode.
See you guys.
Thank you so much.